Welcome to this talk about basic communications. I'm going to be getting into some things such as photography, video, doing newsletters, public speaking, correspondence. So I think you'll find it useful. You know, in the body of Christ, communication is like the circulatory system. It helps everyone coordinate with each other, so it's very useful. Communication. It is good to communicate well. The Bible tells us about this. Proverbs 25:11, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. And Proverbs 18:13, he who answers before listening, that is his folly and his shame. 2 Corinthians 1:13a, for we do not write you anything you cannot read or understand. So it is godly to communicate well and to be clear and to help people to understand. Okay, first we're going to get into some things about photography and video. And this is not so much for those who have fancy cameras, but for those who have phones, because these can do so much now. And if we just follow some good guidelines, we can have great results. Photography. So here are some suggestions that you can use to improve and have good photography at whatever level you are in that. Number one, use good lighting. So, for example, if I'm taking photos indoors, I'll be opening windows, I will be turning on lights, I will do whatever I can to bring some good lighting, which makes for better photos. I find outside a cloudy day is actually better because it diffuses light and lights up everything as opposed to a sunny day where you have sharper shadows and so on. But of course, it depends what you're after. Number two, watch backlighting. See, photos like this, where you have a subject and the light in back of them is brighter, you end up with this shadowy sort of outcome. Here's a photo we took a few years ago, and it just happened to be that we were facing away from the light and someone took a photo. But then I got the idea, let's turn around and, situate ourselves to the lights coming towards us. And we took this photo. Isn't that much better? So take a little time and situate your subjects so the light is coming in the right way, and that'll give you a better result. Number three, for portraits, shade is often better than sun. So when you're taking group pictures or even individual shots, I tend to try to get people in the shade. Here's a group picture we took in the sun one time, and you can see it's clear, but people are squinting, and it's just not quite the best. Then we actually moved the same group at the same time into the shade, and look how much better that is. It's almost like people are relieved to be out of the sun, and they can open their eyes and really be themselves, and it looks much better. So I tend to go for the shade. Number four, avoid the shade-sun combination because that doesn't always turn out the best and photos can be blotchy and somewhat. Five, use the golden hour. The golden hour is the hour after sunrise or the hour before sunset. And that's when the sun is more golden and you have more golden rays, and it's not so glaringly bright. It's just very nice, and you can get some good photos, sometimes some nice yellowish golden hues on subjects, and it can make for a good result. Here's a photo we took in Leh, up in North India at a very high altitude, and up there the sun was so bright during the day, just blazingly bright, and it made for harsh shadows. So I waited until about 1 hour before sunset or even less to take this group photo so it wouldn't be so glaring. And it turned out quite nicely. And here are some photos I took in Chile, in Santiago, during the golden hour before sunset. And you can see what nice colors and results you can get. Number 6, catch people facing the right way. I know some photographers I've seen just go out and take pictures and people are not even, they're like behind the crowd and you're just getting backs of people. And so when I'm taking a photo of a person, I want to get them facing me. Now, you can't always predict that. Sometimes people are playing sports and they're moving around. And so you need to take a lot of photos, and some of them you'll get the person facing in the right direction, but try to get on the right side of them. Don't just take pictures of people's backs. It's not very exciting, or the back of people's heads. These are quite boring. Like, here's a worship time, and I went around the crowd towards the front, or at least the side, and I got people more facing in my direction, so it wasn't so just people's backs. Number 7, catch good expressions. So again, now this is probably more hit and miss. Like, you can't always predict what a person's expression is going to be as people are moving around. So just take a lot of photos and keep the ones where people have good expressions. Occasionally you'll catch something very nice. Number 8, beware of blinking eyes. And blinking is very quick and you often can miss it. You can take a photo and not realize the person blinked at the instant of the photo. That is why many photographers, when, say, taking portrait type shots, will take 2 or 3 of the same person at the same angle and everything, just because the person might have blinked. Or same with group photos. You take a number of them because some people may have blinked. Number 9, avoid lens obstruction. So be careful not to have your finger in front of the lens and so on. So this is easier to do on cell phones or small cameras, so you have to be careful not to do that. Number 10, don't forget to clean your lens. And you can use a smooth, damp cloth. There's been a few occasions where I forgot to clean my lens, and I was going around taking pictures, and then I look at the results and I realize there's this little splotch in all my photos. So we got to keep checking that. 11, frame well. Avoid pointless empty space. Look at this photo of myself with all that sky. Well, the sky's not that interesting. Why did they chop off the bottom of my body so they could show the sky? And same with these other photos, these walls, and someone was really thinking the ceiling was just amazing, apparently. And again, these photographers can be so interested in dark sky or light sky or blank walls. So use up the space. Don't waste space like that. Number 12, use the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is you don't have your subject right in the center, but rather a bit off to the side. And when you have different parts of your photo, you don't divide the photo in half, but rather you think in thirds. And this gives a more artistic look to your photos and videos as well. So think in thirds, and you'll find your photos will come out just a little more interesting and visually appealing. Number 13, get close to your subjects. This is a big mistake that new photographers make. They stand too far away from their subjects and they don't really fill the photo with their subjects. Look at this photo. These people are so far away. What's the point? You want to get closer up. Here's some photos that someone took of some sports events we had at a conference. And it looks like it was a kind of boring time, doesn't it? The way these photos were taken. But then here's some photos I took, and I got close up to people and used a bit of a zoom lens, filled the picture with the people. And there you can see the expressions and the fun and the color and the subjects close up. So that's what you want to do. Get closer up to your subjects, either by moving closer up or using somewhat of a zoom on your camera. See, that cake looks more interesting closer up and more delicious. I think it was. Number 14, take many photos and delete all the junk. And many of you hearing this or watching this video, hearing me teach, you may have not even experienced the days of film. And when we had film cameras, you would take 24 pictures, put it in for developing, spend $5, $6, $7, and get those pictures back. And sometimes they were good and sometimes they were lame. And so we were more careful back in those days. You know, like if you're going to take a picture, you're spending money on this thing. So you try to take a good one. So it was harder to practice so much. But now with these digital cameras where taking a picture is free, you can just go crazy and learn along the way. And also you can take many photos, and then once you look at the photos, you see which are the gems and you keep those. So my advice is take many photos and delete the junk. But do delete the junk. Don't keep the bad photos. They just clog up your computer, they use up space, they get in the way. So usually what I do is after an event where I've taken a bunch of photos, I go through the photos and I end up deleting most of them, keeping the better ones. Back in the days of film, again, when it was more costly to take each picture, National Geographic was always known from those days and today as well for having great photos. And even back in the days of film, their photographers were known for taking about 10,000 photographs for every one that was published. Now, if they could do that in the days of film, how much more we should be doing that in the days of digital, taking many photos and then just keeping the gems, and those are the ones you print or post on Facebook or whatever. And because National Geographic did this, they ended up with great photos when they did pick the winners. I mean, look at these things. Very memorable, beautiful photos. Because they went through so many to find the gems. And sometimes you're taking pictures, you can't always predict what's going to end up being a gem. Maybe just the right expression or right action will happen before your eyes. Or you just don't realize how this thing's going to look when it's come out as a photo. So take a lot of pictures, experiment, and then sort through them and find the ones that are the amazing gems, the winners. And then people will think you're an amazing photographer, when actually you're just playing the odds and taking many photos. The more photos you take, the more likely you'll have a winner. Okay, number 15. Be aware of the background. So sometimes the background can be a distraction and will take away. You know, we have this classic example of something growing out of a person's head, that sort of thing. Or this photo would have been nice if that woman in the background wasn't there. You know, just this one woman in front would have been better. So sometimes I'm taking a photo of someone like this and I see someone in the background and I wait for them to walk out of the picture for a more plain photo. Enjoy the photo bombs, number 16. A photo bomb is when someone unknown, sometimes it's a friend and sometimes it's someone you don't even know, walks into the photo or is in the photo and they kind of participate. I find these generally add humor to it, so enjoy them when they happen. This is a classic when a guy was proposing to his fiancée and a runner happened to come by at that very moment. Here's one we took in Nepal on a trek, and here you see this Nepali woman in a village standing behind us. That was just wonderful. We thought that added something. This is a goodbye party they had for me in Hawaii at a restaurant, and the musician at the restaurant on the right side there joined in the photo. We all thought it was hilarious when we saw it. And celebrities have been known to photobomb, and that can add something. Even Prince Harry and the Queen have been known to photobomb, as well as animals. Occasionally you might get a good photobomb from an animal. So be open to these humorous possibilities. Number 17, use background and props. So if we're going around and we want to take a picture, I look for something to be in the background that's interesting. Don't just take a picture with nothing interesting. I often use signs. These are some signs in Pokhara, India. And there we are, Divya Hotel, and, signs or whatever sort of interesting things that you like to take pictures of. Take yourself with them, and then you have both a good portrait and some interesting scenery at the same time. So I'm always kind of keeping an eye out as we walk around for something interesting to take a photo with. And a photo can tell a story as well. This was the morning after we heard something very loud collapse outside our bedroom window, and it was the awning over our apartment entrance. Okay, number 18, compose your photos. So take time to compose people as you take their photos, put them somewhere where they can be interesting and space them out or put them in a nice pose. And this is what I've done in different situations. Framing my photos to have interesting things around the subject, looking at what's in the background to tell a good story. See, for this class photo I took of this DTS, I didn't just take it at regular level. I stood up on a chair, but that gave a better perspective of the class for the photo. Or this worship photo, the photographer went around behind the worship leaders and got this interesting photo. Here's one I took of some village people in India. Here's a guy we met while we were out taking pictures. He was such a funny subject. We got some photos with him. So take some time to compose your photos. Number 19, learn the photo settings on your phone. Most of you hearing this teaching probably do not have a professional type camera, but you're using your phone. And these phones can do a lot in areas like photography or video. So look at the different settings, look at the different things you can do, understand these settings, and then you can really take advantage of the different situations and the different possibilities. I had my phone for several months before I discovered it had that rapid video mode where you can take video for 1 hour and then speed it up so it all happens in 1 minute. I didn't even realize it was there because I didn't really fully explore my phone. So explore and try things out. Number 20, use shutter speed as far as that helping you in your photos. You could use slow shutter speed for things like this. Here you see the subject standing still and everybody else walking around them. That's an interesting effect. Or this is a photo I took in Amsterdam at night. probably several seconds it took to take that photo, soaking in that light, but then it comes out very clear. There's a photo of San Francisco I took in the night. It may have taken 30 seconds or a minute to take that photo. So using a slow shutter speed can get some interesting results. Or if you want kind of a blur instead of something clear like this small waterfall there, you can see the difference between the different speeds. On the other hand, you could use a very fast shutter speed and catch things very clear, such as people jumping around. So we had fun with fast shutter speeds. Number 21, use aperture. So that can be used to have different effects on photos. Low aperture is better for portraits. That is, when only one distance from the camera is in focus. So it's good for portraits because the background is blurry and the people are emphasized. That's typically what is done. High aperture, where everything's in focus, which is easier to do when there's more light, is better for scenery, where everything is sharp, whether it's close or far. So you can use these settings to make the difference. Number 22, edit your photos. So once you've taken your photos and you've deleted all the junk, then you can also go through the photos that you have and you can edit them. There might be some that are a little too dark or that could be cropped, or the colors can be revitalized, things like this. I often use, there's Photoshop, which is the professional sort of program, but many don't have that because it costs a bit of money. I often use Faststone on my laptop, which is a free program. And now there's many free programs or apps that you can have on your phone, so you can improve your photos. Here's a photo of a few of us, again, in that sort of situation where the light was behind us, but that just happened to be the way we were facing. So that's how the photo was taken. But with a photo editor, I was able to brighten up the photo, crop it in a little bit, and improve that photo. Same with this one. I just was sitting in where I was. I couldn't move around, and the girl was facing that direction, so that's the photo I got. But with the photo editor, I blared up the light and improved the photo. And here are some others where, again, the subjects were too dark, but we were able to resuscitate them a bit with a photo editor. In this one, the camera had to be put on a table or something, so it couldn't be closer. But with an editor, I was able to crop and colorize it and make the photo a little nicer. And here's another one where we crop the photo slightly nicer. In this photo, you can see a bit of my hair is flying in the wind there. There's an ugly clothesline behind us, and we're a bit far away. But with the photo editor on my computer, I improved my hair, brushed away that clothesline, and colorized the photo a little bit more, making it much nicer. So there are things we can do. And maybe you don't like the colors people are wearing. You can even change the colors. So options are there. Gets to the point where we wonder what's real in certain photos. Like on September 11th, 2001, the attacks in New York City, a photo later came out on the internet of this tourist who was on top of one of the world towers as it was being hit by one of the airplanes. Or so people said. But then as people searched the internet, they discovered that this guy also was at the destruction of the Hindenburg and the sinking of the Titanic. So in other words, that first photo was just done by Photoshop. And then we have this situation. There was a guy who was proposing to his fiancée at Disney World, And just as he was proposing, another guy just happened to step in the way of the photographers. They nicknamed him the in the way guy because this photo went viral on the internet. And then as people looked around, they discovered this in the way guy ended up in other photos, like in front of the Obamas when Barack Obama was sworn in as president, or with the Beatles on Abbey Road, or in front of the Pope, or the Man on the Moon, or the Last Supper. So it's amazing what you can do with Photoshop and other programs. So learn a little bit how to use those photo editors, and that can help you improve your photos. Number 23, avoid boring ministry photos. I think ministry photos tend to be the most boring type of photos you can see sometimes. Look at this one. Isn't that exciting? Why is it when people pray, suddenly people start taking out their cameras as if the best possible photo you can take is with someone's head bowed and eyes closed? That's about the worst possible photographic situation. Maybe we're just trying to prove we're spiritual or something. But don't run around taking pictures of people when they're praying. Find something a little more interesting. Just taking pictures of people sitting in meetings, that's not very exciting. And using flash, and we'll talk about that later. But tell a story. Like, here's a photo I took of my wife when she was giving rice to a leper village. And you can see there's something happening there. And here's someone else praying or counseling for someone. And my lovely wife praying for a couple people in a village. And see, these photos more show something happening, or you can see what the situation is. So try to compose your photos a bit and show people what is happening. Give them some action. Give them something they can kind of tell what's happening, and more interesting than just people sitting on the ground. Okay, 24. Avoid using the flash as much as possible. And some people in darker situations want to use the flash, and actually that's when you don't want to use the flash, because you often end up with blurry things like this. It's better to use a slower shutter speed and get the camera very still if you can do that. Actually, the flash can be more useful sometimes in the daytime. If you're in a situation where you're taking a picture closer up and there are harsh shadows, the flash can help lessen those shadows. All right, number 25, back up your photos in multiple ways. There was one time I had many photos on my laptop. The laptop crashed. I lost the hard drive. All those photos were gone. Or another time when I loaded some photos onto the internet thinking I could save them there, only to find out later the place I used was only good for 30 days, and then they deleted and I lost those photos. So it's better to save your photos in multiple places after all that effort. So I have my photos on my laptop. I have them on external drives, multiple ones, and a number loaded up to the internet. I'm planning to load more up to the internet, trying to back things up in different ways because things can be stolen or broken or erased, and we don't want to miss all that effort. So, of course, that's not just photos, but everything you do, you should back up in multiple ways. So that's photography. And if you follow these basic suggestions I have given, I guarantee you will have improved photos. So enjoy. Okay, video. Now keep in mind, though, as we discuss video, that a number of the things I mentioned in photography would also apply to video. The getting close to your subject and composing using the rule of thirds, saving your videos in different places, these sort of things. So those suggestions can help you in both modes. But here are some more suggestions that can apply to video. 1, video horizontally. Don't video vertically unless you're really specifically doing it for a certain app that uses vertical photos. I think a few do, but generally I would suggest do horizontal videos, because most of the time when we send videos around, when we post videos, we're using YouTube. And so YouTube is horizontal. And so when you have a vertical video on YouTube, it's viewed in a smaller size and it's kind of looking lame. So go with horizontal usually, unless there's a specific reason not to. Number 2, hold the camera steady. That's an important thing in video. That'll give you better quality. Now, it's more challenging with a phone than a camera because you have something smaller, so it's easier to kind of bump around a little bit. But do your best to hold it steadily. Nowadays, you can buy holders for your phone, like something called a gimbal, which makes it very steady. You can even walk around with these things and you won't be bumping around so much. I was wanting to buy one, but now we're in the coronavirus situation. It's hard to order things, but I think they're for sale here in Chile at a cheaper price. These things used to be pretty expensive, and some are, but there are some cheaper ones that you can buy now. So I would suggest, if you're using phone video, get a gimbal, and that will help you have more steady videos. Also, you can get some sort of a tripod or a small grip tripod like this. I have one like this. It's very handy because for both photographs and video, I can just, attach my phone to some branch or some object, and I have a steady place to video from. So I would suggest getting one of those. Number 3, don't pan around too fast. Again, with a small phone, it's easy to do. You just, look this way and look that way. But on video, it looks like you're moving around all over the place, and people can get dizzy watching it. Number 4, don't zoom in and out too much, because that, again, can kind of make people a bit dizzy and it's distracting. So avoid zooming in and out in a scene. You might do one close up and then cut to a different clip and do that far away, but try to avoid using that zoom much in the midst of your videos. It doesn't really have a very good effect. Number 5, both in photos and video, don't use digital zoom too much, because when you're using digital zoom, you're reducing the sharpness of the video or the photo. So it's better to try to get close to your subject if you can, as opposed to trying to zoom from far away, unless you have a really good optical zoom lens. Number 6, like I said, get close to your subject. Most people tend to be too far away from their subjects and have a lot of space that's wasted. Also, it's good for the audio to catch what they're saying, being close to them. Number 7, video a lot and just keep what is good. Do many clips, just like with photography. Do a lot of videos and not one long video. It's better to have short clips, because you're not likely going to keep one long video unless it's one specific speech or something. So get a lot of clips and get more clips than what you need, and then you can delete the ones that are not so good and splice together and edit together the ones that are quality. Number 8, be sure to keep track of when the camera is recording and when it's not. If you're not paying attention in a busy event, sometimes you can end up recording when you don't want to be and then not recording when you want to be recording. So there was one Christmas party we had where someone who had the camera got these two things confused, and we ended up with a bunch of videos like this. Number 9, have with you a spare battery, or be sure your phone is charged, and other useful supplies. So there's nothing worse than being at an event to take pictures or video and you run out of power. It's getting a bit better. I used to have these phones that would just drain very quickly, and you're running around, look, where can I charge this thing? But phones are getting with more battery power these days, but still you want to be fully charged when you go out for an event so you don't have that happen to you. Number 10, for amplified talks, shoot from near the system speakers. Sometimes I found if you're videoing a person speaking and it's in a larger room and you're in the center of the room, sometimes the echo from the two speakers gives you an unclear audio of the person speaking. So I find it's better to be close to one of the speakers, and then it comes out more clear. Number 11, beware of room echo. So there was one time, for example, when I was taking some video of Vishal Mangavati, very good speaker, who was speaking at one of our schools, but unfortunately the classroom was larger and it didn't have, carpeting or anything like that. So the sound kind of bounced around. And once I played the video back, the sound quality was so bad it was useless, even though he would have been good to have video of. So we want to be aware of those echo problems. If you're doing a video cast, you want to get in a room that doesn't have so much empty wall space for sound to bounce off of. And sometimes I put up blankets and pillows and things to try to absorb sound. And as with photography, number 12, use plenty of light, and that will give you a sharper, crisper, more effective video. And you want a good kind of lighting. I've seen some people make videos with lighting that looks like an interrogation room. And so they end up with these awful shadows, with a light just above them. So you want to have multiple light sources. In fact, usually when I shoot videos indoors, like of myself talking, I will do it in the daytime, face the window, and get that sunlight coming into the room. Often I'll turn on the lights in the room also. And with that, I have enough lighting. So you can come up with lighting solutions, even if you're an amateur like myself. You don't necessarily need those professional lights until you get to that level, but just use some of the resources that you have with you. Number 13, frame your shots well. So when I'm taking video, I'm thinking just like I am with photography. I'm trying to fill the lens with things interesting. I try to get close to subjects. I try and include the different elements. See, look in this photo, I got some of the audience and some of the people in front and got as close as I could to make it interesting. And then try, number 14, shoot from several vantage points. So, like I said, get different clips of the event and move to different vantage points. And then when you splice those shots together, it really looks nice because people almost feel like they're there because they're seeing this from different angles. Number 15, Try hyperlapse. Many phones now have hyperlapse, and you can shoot at a 1 second per 10 seconds or 10 seconds per 60 seconds, whatever, and which makes things move much faster in the video, and that can make for some interesting videos. I've done this and had some good results. Number 16, video the highlights and then edit them together, like I said. Number 17, set up a good and simple background. So if you get just a certain colored sheet or blanket or something to put behind you, that can be good. You'll notice those who are doing video casting are generally just finding simple backgrounds to be behind them. Don't just have a bunch of meaningless clutter. Now, Diamond and Silk have a video cast in their living room, but notice that they set up the background very nicely, very neatly, so it doesn't distract you. In fact, it looks quite nice. Or Dennis Prager, who has his fireside chat, in which he sets up a very warm environment there with his books behind him, his nice chair, his dog at his feet, and it gives a very nice effect. So it's very carefully composed. So compose your videos if you're doing these sort of podcast things. I've seen some people do teachings on video, but they take no time to do this, and the lighting and the composition and the background are terrible, even though sometimes the teaching is quite good. So let's let the quality of our video match the quality of our teaching. And hopefully the teaching you're doing is quite good. Number 18, watch videos of the type you want to make. So if you're doing a video cast, watch them. If you're doing travel videos, watch them. Those can give you ideas. I have picked up a number of ideas for both my travel videos and my teaching videos just by watching what other people do. Number 19, get a phone with a good camera. When I'm shopping around for a phone, that's the number one thing I'm looking at. How good is the camera? Because I know I'm going to be taking a lot of photos with this thing. And then there's always that competition between Android and Apple. And you have to navigate these things and find what is the best phone to use for the camera. So you might be an Apple iPhone loyalist, or you might be a Android loyalist. You know, we all favor different kinds of phones and argue about which is best. Whatever type of phone you're going to get, look for a good camera.
No, closer. Come on.
Panorama coming through. Panorama coming at you. Ow!
2007 call. It wants its camera phone back.
How's this for a drama shot?
Why aren't we getting closer?
With the Nokia Lumia 1020, we got the best seats in the house.
Let's get a group shot.
Meet the Nokia Lumia 1020 with 41 megapixels and reinvented zoom. Nothing else comes close.
You know, every day more photos are taken with an iPhone.
I am delighted we could share in the serenity and joy of this beautiful day as we come together to celebrate the commitment of these.
Would you mind moving your enormous phone?
You mean the enormously awesome Galaxy?
Search One Trick Pony.
Aren't you a little young to have an iPhone?
You want to go?
iSheet, copy bots.
Autocorrect this.
Is there an app for that? Search karate. Karate!
You think if they knew about the Nokia Lumia, they'd stop fighting all the time?
I don't know. I think they kind of like fighting.
The Windows Phone Nokia Lumia 920. Engadget's Reader's Choice Smartphone of the Year.
Number 20, promote your video. Chances are, if you just put your videos up on YouTube, and that only, you won't get many views because there's so many videos on YouTube. What you need to promote, for my travel videos, I will tend to post them on travel groups in Facebook to kind of get the interest going. You know, I'll take India travel videos, post them on India groups and so on. That can help promote them a bit. For my teaching videos, I've mainly sent them to people who have heard me teach before, but they probably heard me in one topic, and so now I'm making available for them, and maybe for you, you probably are one of them if you're watching this video, my different topics. And so you probably wouldn't be watching this video, for example, if I had not promoted it. So you need to promote your videos and make use of the effort that you've put into them. That is, if your video is intended for a wider audience. Sometimes they're just meant for a specific audience. But let people know, whoever you want to see your video, let them know about your videos. Okay, let's look at newsletters. Here are some ministry newsletter tips. So this could be physical newsletters you print out or newsletters you send by email and in other forms. Number one, keep it short. 1 page or at the most 2. People tend to be busy. People are getting a lot of communication from different people. So try to keep your newsletters short. Number 2, be concise, not too wordy. So it can be good once you compose your newsletter to go back and try and shorten it a bit. In other words, is that sentence even needed? Is that string of words needed? We can generally shorten our newsletters and make them more concise so people use less time reading them. Number 3, have a mix of ministry and personal stories. Just like if you met someone, you can have a mix of both. Number 4, specific examples are better than general. So in other words, rather than have things always like, well, we had a good time of ministry yesterday, we talked to 200 people and they really enjoyed, it's just kind of general. It's people like to hear stories like, I spoke with this one woman who was really hurting and she asked me for prayer and I prayed for her and she thanked me and she wanted a Bible and I gave, and you give one real personal, specific example of something that happened. A story like that can really be good. Number 5, be positive. So, well, that's generally a good rule for life as well. I mean, we want to be realistic, but at the same time, be positive. Number 6, if fundraising, include how to send. I've had some people send newsletters. I've seen them where they say, yes, we need more money for our ministry. And they don't even say how to send it. And people are not likely to contact them and say, well, how do I send it? But rather include how the person can send the funds and make it easy. The easier you make for them to do that, the more likely they might do it. And again, you have to decide when to do this, because you don't just want to contact people out of the blue and ask for money immediately, but you hopefully have built up somewhat of a communication with this person and are friends with them, and then are able to ask for funds. Number 7, be appreciative. If someone sends you something, or they're even considering it, or if they're praying for you, whatever, be appreciative. Number 8, be personal, not all of you. What that means is, when you're composing a newsletter, you don't say something like, I'm sure you're all wondering what I'm up to, as if you're speaking to a crowd of people. Compose your newsletter as if you're speaking to one person. I'm sure you are wondering what I'm up to, so let me tell you, okay? Make it more personal. Number 9, be honest. So you don't want to be positive to the point where your newsletter is false. You want to be honest. So have some balance there. Number 10, get someone to edit and give feedback. So it can be good to compose a newsletter, show it to someone else who knows about these sort of things, and ask them what they think, and they can help edit. And if your English is a second language to you, you can hopefully find someone who knows English well to help you with the English as well. Okay, here's correspondence. So we've talked about newsletters. That's more talking about your ministry, but correspondence can be your own personal correspondence, or it can be correspondence for a ministry. And these are some things you want to keep in mind when you're corresponding with people. One is be reachable. So that means, for example, have your phone with you within Wi-Fi range. So if someone wants to call, we've had DTSs, for example, where we promote the DTS, people call the numbers we gave, and they can't get a hold of anyone because the phone is not in Wi-Fi range. So certainly you want to do that. And you want to be checking your email, checking your Facebook, checking your WhatsApp messages, and so on. So be reachable so people are not frustrated trying to get a hold of you, especially if you're running a school and you want to get students. Number 2, respond quickly. If someone asks you a question, try to respond as quick as you can. In fact, one reason I did my DTS where I did in New Zealand, I actually wrote many places. I wrote the Cook Islands and Kona and Germany and different locations. But one reason I did my DTS in New Zealand is they responded very quickly to my query. And they were friendly. That's number 3. Be friendly in your correspondence. These can be prospective students or maybe prospective supporters or prospective people you can network with. You may not know them, but they can be a big help to you. You could be a help to them. Be friendly in your correspondence. Number 4, in emails, have an informative subject line. So summarize what is your email about on the subject line so people can see, oh, this is about that. I better look at that. So subject lines are good to be clear. Number 5, get to the point fairly quickly in your correspondence. That will help the people. Number 6, use good grammar and spelling. So you have to work more at this if English is a second language for you, but take the time to do that. There are some helps and suggestions. Capitalize each sentence. I've seen some people not do that. Use complete sentences. Avoid slang. Be formal at least as much as them. Reread your response. So sometimes you can go back and realize, oh, I could say that a little nicer. Use spell checkers and grammar checkers. They are out there on the internet, so really there's less of an excuse to have misspelled words and such because it can be checked right there on the net. Ask others with better English grammar for help, and they can do so. Okay, number 7 on correspondence. Be professional, especially in official correspondence. When, say, you're a school registrar or you're communicating from a YWAM base, then you want to give a very professional aura, so take the time to do that. Number 8, use the form of correspondence best for that person. So as you're corresponding with someone, you have to kind of intuitively look at how is it best to correspond with this person. I know some people who are very busy, but they're quite good at internet. And so I don't call them ever because I'm usually going to interrupt a meeting, especially, leaders and such. I will send them a WhatsApp or an email, and then they can see that maybe while they're in their meeting, when they're sneaking a look at their phone, and they can respond to me. Other people, I've known other people who are terrible at, say, Facebook, and you'll never hear from them on Facebook. And some are terrible at email, and you'll never hear from them in email, and you have to call them if you're going to get a clear answer. And I've known some people, even YWAM leaders, who feel like they get overwhelmed by all these emails, so you have to call them to really find out what's going on. So you have to kind of go person by person and see how is it best to communicate. Number 9, edit your correspondence. So once you draft a letter or an email, especially about something a little more extensive, look back at it and just see if you could say that in a better way. Number 10, sign off nicely in official correspondence. All right, so that's correspondence. Now we'll get to public speaking. So here are some suggestions for you getting into that and improving. Number 1, find and prepare a topic to talk about. Some people think, I'd like to get into teaching and preaching, and they don't have anything. They're just waiting for an invitation before they want to develop something. Well, I would say develop something. And when you have a good teaching developed, I think God will open up a door for you to use that. It may not be before a crowd of 1,000, but it may be at least a few people, and you can grow in that. Number 2, dress appropriately. Generally, they say when giving a talk, you want to dress a little bit nicer than your audience, just a notch above your audience. Number 3, set up sound, projector, etc. well ahead of time. And I always use PowerPoints when I teach. I use videos, so I need to do this. And sometimes there are glitches. The computer's not booting up properly. The sound is not quite, the projector has a problem. The projector isn't connecting well with my computer. And so I try to do these things ahead of time so I'm not fumbling around in front of a class of 30 people waiting on me. Though I did teach in one school where they had a very tight schedule, and I was put up to teach almost instantly before I had to begin teaching. Like I only had like 2 minutes to set up the projector, so I really had to hurry on that one. But usually you'll have time, and so be sure to use that. Number 4, project your voice. Remember, you are speaking to the person in the back of the room. So if you don't have a microphone, you need to project so they hear you well. Number 5, have some notes, but don't just read them. So it's good to have notes. It keeps you on track. And if you kind of blank out, you can look and continue on your way. But you don't want to be dependent on them where you're just reading them. Hopefully you have enough of your talk in your memory and your head so you can just talk without always looking down at the notes. You want to be a little bit more free than just going off a script, because when you're going off a script, it often comes off as a bit boring. For example, Dr. Martin Luther King, when he gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, actually the first part of the speech was kind of boring. He was just going off of his script. But he was also a preacher. At one point, I think he noticed the audience wasn't quite connecting. And then a woman who attended his church was sitting behind him, and she said, "Tell them about the dream." And he pushed aside his speech script. And someone said, "These people don't realize it, but they're about to go to church." And that's when Martin Luther King launched into his point about "I have a dream." And that became quite famous. So he did better by not going just off the script and being himself.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. That one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
Number 6, don't pontificate. Just be yourself. There are some people I've seen that they're very normal when they're talking to you one-on-one, but then when they get up to give a sermon, they suddenly become all religious. You know, they'll stand up and they'll say, "Brothers and sisters, I am honored today to give you my testimony in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ." You know, they become just different. And different denominations have their own ways of pontificating. You know, the Presbyterians might say, "And if you turn to 2 Corinthians 3, you'll find that the writer is saying this. The person's not talking to you as they would normally. Or the Pentecostal religiosity. Hallelujah, brothers and sisters, I just spent 3 days fasting and prayer, hallelujah, and we're going to hallelujah, praise God, hallelujah. And they're just not normal. So be normal. Don't get all religious when you get up to give a sermon or a testimony or a talk. And that is why Pope Francis has had more popularity, because he's been more of a real person, and he'll just be normal and take selfies with people and have fun, and that makes him more popular. So be yourself when you're speaking. Number 7, be confident and look your audience in the eyes. So even if you're not confident, just be confident. Just go for it. Number 8, tell stories. Don't just make theological points or Bible verses, but tell stories, especially real stories about yourself, your experiences. People like that. It makes it very real. Jesus told a lot of stories. Use humor. People enjoy humor.
I like to start with something funny, and I heard about this minister. He was driving down the road when he got pulled over by a policeman. The officer came up to the window and smelled alcohol. He saw a thermos and said, "Sir, what are you drinking?" The minister said, "Just water, officer." He asked to see the thermos, and he took one sniff and said, "Smells like wine to me." The minister said, "What do you know? Jesus did it again."
Number 10, keep within your time. So don't go over. In fact, sometimes what happens is, say you're scheduled to speak from 12:15 till 1. They say you have 45 minutes, you'll be speaking between 12:15 and 1, and they put you on at 12:30 because things have fallen behind. What do? I often try to still finish by 1, maybe go a little over 1, like 1:05, but I won't go till 1:15. I try to help the situation. So try to keep within your time and even shorten your talk if that's necessary. Number 11, try some audience participation. So if you're able to ask some questions or get them to share something, that can make it a little better and more interactive, so the audience doesn't just kind of begin to tune out. Number 12, keep calm and speak slowly. Also, try to reduce the amount of and and other filler words, because those make you look kind of spacey. See, if you think about when you're kind of talking and trying to figure out what to say, and you kind of interrupt yourself by saying stalling, kind of like that, it gives the impression that you're just kind of fumbling around for words and you don't really know what you're talking about. But if you speak slowly and you can pause on occasion, instead of saying you come off much better. And when you pause, it gives the effect that you are significant in what you're saying. And the audience really needs to think about that because it's so important. So instead of saying and pause. It's not easy to do all the time, especially if you're speaking more rapidly. And I still do that, but I'm trying to reduce the amount of in my life, and you should do the same. Here is Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, and someone made a video making fun of how much he does this.
When and how will the feds be able to step in to help on that front?
Certainly. I think we're all aware that a prime minister showing up in Fort McMurray when firefighters are busy trying to contain a massive raging wildfire is not a particularly helpful thing. The best thing I can do right now is make sure that our operations center and indeed the lines of communication with the folks on the ground and the folks in Alberta are as robust, instant and effective as possible. But I am certain that in the coming weeks I will have an opportunity to go out to Fort McMurray to both express my support directly to Premier Notley and Mayor Melissa Blake and others, but also to understand and share with Canadians the scale and the scope of the devastation that struck this community that for so many years contributed so much to the Canadian economy in terms of growth, and a community that now very much needs our help and attention. And that's certainly something I can't say I look forward to it, because just the pictures are troubling enough. But I know that it is going to be extremely important that I get out there.
Number 13, ignore the discouraging people. When you're giving a talk before a group, there probably will be someone or some people who are a little discouraging. They look bored. They're looking away. Don't focus on those people. Instead, focus on the people who seem more interested. I remember one time I gave a speech in speech class in university, and a couple of people were laughing, and it totally threw me off. I was thinking they were laughing at me. I think they were just laughing at some other unrelated joke between them. But I let it throw me off, so I should not do that. You shouldn't do that. Or another time I gave a talk at a church. I remember seeing someone in the middle of the audience look at their watch as I spoke, and it kind of jolted me. So don't let those things discourage you. Actually, people do those things all the time, and it doesn't mean that your talk is boring. It's just often a momentary thought or distraction that they had. So focus on the encouraging people, not the discouraging people as you give your talk. Number 14, turn nervousness into excitement. They say the only difference between fear and excitement is your attitude about it. So take that nervous energy and focus it on enthusiasm. I guarantee if you are genuinely enthusiastic about what you're talking about, you're likely to overcome the nervousness. 15, know your material. If you know your material and your topic really well, you'll be more confident. You won't be fumbling around looking at your notes so much. You won't be worried about the audience. You'll be so confident and into your topic, you'll plow through fine. So know your material well. Number 16, know your audience. There can be different audiences who are interested in different aspects or able to catch different aspects, so you can adjust accordingly. Number 17, don't go too long. As I said before, better to go a little short. Even if you're in an exact time frame, don't be afraid to go a little short. That will certainly make you look better than if you go long. 18, be yourself. Don't try to copy other people or some religious style. Be you. And if you are yourself, I guarantee you will be a good speaker. There's a denomination in USA called Calvary Chapel, and their philosophy is to preach through the Bible, which can be quite good. The founder of Calvary Chapel was a guy named Chuck Smith, who died a few years ago. He had a very nice style of teaching in which he would go chapter by chapter or sometimes verse by verse and just talk about each verse, and you could just talk through it. And that style worked very well for him, and people enjoyed his teachings. But unfortunately, a number of pastors imitated not just the philosophy of teaching through the Bible. That can be a good philosophy, of course, but they tried to be like Chuck Smith in their style. And they would just go verse by verse and talk about the verse in the same way Chuck would. But for some reason, this style that worked for Chuck Smith would often come off as boring in other Calvary Chapel pastors because they were not themselves. They were trying to be Chuck Smith. But what I noticed is the Calvary Chapel pastors who really succeeded and became well known were those who learned to be themselves. I think 4 of the best known Calvary Chapel pastors would be Greg Laurie, Skip Heitzig, Mike McIntosh, and John Corson. Very good speakers, and none of them speak like Chuck Smith did. They don't have that same style. They go through the Bible, but they don't have the same style that Chuck Smith. They're very much themselves. And that's why they have succeeded. That you have to find your own style. Don't imitate anyone else. You might get a good idea for speaking or teaching from another person, but don't try to be them. Be yourself. 19, motivate people to take action. Your talk will really be a success if you succeed in getting the audience to actually do something constructive towards the goal. 20, ask for feedback. So after you give a talk somewhere in different places, you can ask people for feedback. How was your talk? Any ways to improve? And you might pick up some things. Because public speaking includes so many different facets that all of us can be continually growing in that area. So let's keep asking for feedback and improving and getting better and better. So that is communication. So I hope you enjoyed those things about communication. Let's all get out there and communicate more clearly and with better quality.